So welcome everybody and happy New Year. As we do each time we get together, we're going to take just a couple of minutes to really settle in. So I invite you to take your seat, sitting comfortably, and really feeling yourself supported wherever it is that you're sitting. And taking a couple of breaths, filling up your lungs, holding that breath for just a moment, and then slowly exhaling, letting that breath go, and letting any tension in your body just go with that breath. So thinking of that exhale as a letting go of whatever it is that you need to let go of. And a couple more breaths like this, really settling, being here, appreciating that you're taking the time for yourself. Excuse me. Okay. So this week, this Parsha, V'yachei, is the last Parsha in Genesis. So for me, it feels very fitting that as we're embarking on a new year and we're finishing up the old year, we're also finishing up a book of Torah, and we'll be starting a new one. The other thing that's really striking to me is that this Parsha points to both the past and the future. The past is represented to me by Jacob's death, which is really the primary focus of this Parsha. And the future is the kind of foreshadowing of our Exodus, which we begin next week. Because upon his death, Jacob is taken out of Egypt and buried in Canaan. And then the entourage returns. So to summarize the Parsha, rather than continue to talk around it, Jacob spends time preparing for his death, and he does this by blessing his children and offering very specific instructions for his burial. He dies, and then Joseph and his brothers bury their father according to his instructions, as I said, in Canaan. And when they return to Egypt, they fully reconcile. So that's the Parsha in a nutshell. The Musar commentary focus for this Parsha is on the midah of emet, of truth. And for me, this also fits in with entering into a new year. You know, can we look at our past year with some honesty and think about the new year with some honesty? Truth can be seen as something absolute, no deviation. This is the truth, and that's that. Or it can be seen in a more nuanced kind of way. So I really like to think of truth as the bedrock of my relationships, all of my relationships, with family members, with friends, and with myself. And I know that I'm not always truthful. So for me, this is really worth spending a little time with. And I think that looking upon truth as an absolute is problematic. I think we really need to temper truth sometimes. So often there's no need to point out the truth, especially like if it's a flaw and something that the person already either knows or simply can't do anything about. Or, the example, and I've seen this happen, and I suspect most of you have as well, that you're out someplace in public, like a party or a restaurant or some kind of gathering, and someone points out to someone else that there's a stain on their clothing. You're like, what's the point of that? There's nothing they can do about it. Pointing it out before that person leaves home and they could change maybe makes sense. So sometimes it's silence that's golden, and the truth kind of gets swallowed or not shared. So when we think about truth, we need to take into account what the truth is revealing and whether or not it needs to be revealed. If it needs to be stated, then we need to think about how. Is there a way to share this truth while taking into account how it's going to land and the likely consequences that that truth will have once it's revealed? So is there a way to speak the truth and do so in a way that's heard without being hurtful? So these are the kinds of questions that come up all the time in our daily lives. And they certainly came up for Jacob. And he, more often than not, didn't take the time to discern a kind, gentle way to share the truth. So in this parsha, Jacob is brutally honest when he's sharing his blessings with his 12 sons. And I'm not at all sure that blessings is the right word, because I always associate blessing with not with truth telling so much, but with an appreciation, a gratitude. And he was just laying out the truth as he saw it. So to me, this is similar to the pretty unvarnished, maybe even brutal way he shared his dreams with his brothers when they were young, when he was young and immature. And so in some ways, what did he learn over the course of his lifetime about truth telling? I'm not so sure. Rabbi Brett Isarow was the author of this week's commentary in the Musar Torah commentary, which I have looked at and do each week. And he points out that Jacob struggled throughout his life with unvarnished honesty and his inability to discern when it is best to speak the blatant truth and when to mitigate and soften it and when to keep silent. So I think it's worthwhile for us each to kind of take stock about how truthful we are and how truthful we are in different circumstances. And do we take the time to discern when to speak the whole truth and when to choose our words with care so as to convey the truth without being hurtful? And also when to simply stay silent. So I invite you all to take your seats, adjust your posture, and let's take a nice deep breath. Hold it for a moment and slowly exhale. And I'm going to take the liberty, since this is a new year and a new beginning, of talking a little bit about posture. So I believe from what I'm seeing on the screen that most of you are sitting in chairs, which is just fine. So if you're in a chair, please check that your feet are flat on the floor. And feel that floor under your feet. Maybe push your feet into the floor a little bit. If you're sitting on a cushion, whatever part of you is in contact with your support, and bring your attention there. And really, we want to feel really grounded. So those of us in chairs, it's our feet and our bottoms, the bottom of our bottoms on the seat of the chair. So we're really feeling grounded. The lower portion of our body is really sinking into the earth and being held, being supported. And now we shoot that spine straight up, as straight as we can be, as tall as we can be, with our heads reaching up to the heavens. And as our head is reaching up, our shoulders are reaching down. So we're elongating our necks. And your eyes can be open, your eyes can be closed. If you have a tendency to nod off when meditating, I suggest you keep your eyes open. So those of us with our eyes open should bring our gaze down toward the floor with a very soft gaze. Those of us with our eyes closed should imagine that we're looking down into the center of our hearts, of our beings, center of our chest, into our hearts. And we tuck the chin just a little bit. So the back of our neck is really in line with our spine. So we're now sitting in this erect position. And the key is to be erect without being stiff. So notice the movement of your body as you inhale, and the movement as you exhale. If you're really stiff, you're going to impede that flow of air. So this is what I call the alert yet relaxed position. And now take a moment to determine what your point of focus will be. For many of us, it's the breath. And if your point of focus is the breath, see if you can follow your breath all the way from the inhale through the pause, through the exhale, and the next inhale. And for some people, the breath is not a useful anchor. So you may want to focus on a particular part of your body. Maybe your hands as they're in your lap. Or maybe your feet on the floor. Or you might want to use sound as your focus. Being aware of the ambient sounds around, or even your bodily sounds as they emerge. Whatever you decide on, that's your focus for today. It's not for all time, it is for today. And as we move into silence now, every time your mind wanders, and we all know your mind is going to wander, that's what minds do. Every time it wanders, with loving attention, gently come back to your focus, to your anchor. I invite you to deepen your breath a little. Maybe begin to wiggle fingers and toes. Move around. Gently and slowly bring your attention back to the room. And as you're doing so, I will read Winter Morning by James Cruz. When I can no longer say thank you for this new day and the waking into it, for the cold scrape of the kitchen chair and the ticking of the space heater glowing orange as it warms the floor near my feet, I know it is because I've been fooled again by the selfish, unruly man who lives in me and believes he deserves only safety and comfort. Excuse me. But I pause as I do now and watch the streetlights outside winking off one by one like old men closing their cloudy eyes. If I listen to my tired neighbors slamming car doors hard against the morning and see the steaming coffee in their mugs, kissing their chapped lips as they sip and exhale each of their worries white into the icy air around their faces, then I can remember this one life is a gift each of us was handed and told to open. Untie the bow and tear off the paper. Look inside and be grateful for whatever you find, even if it is only the scent of a tangerine that lingers on your fingers long after you've finished eating it. So Happy New Year, everybody. I am glad you are all here. I am turning